I woke up in that room, feeling like I couldn't breathe. The lights were off, but there had to be a dozen of us in there, all crammed together on the floor. I couldn't remember where I was, but I knew I didn't want to be there. I was starving, dying of thirst, and the stench in the air was unbearable. Had I been kidnapped? I couldn't even tell. Trying to think back on the last place I was at, I came up with nothing. Like my entire life had just been years and years of this moment. Then, with pure despair, I realized that was true. I had no free will, no hope for things to change. Just this miserable life with a dozen other husks just like me. This nightmare wasn't even the worst part. I could barely remember what the worst was, because it was like my brain had switched itself off to be able to bear it. I was unconscious for most of my life, and this putrid, suffocating room I had woken up in was my home. The rare moment of rest, when things got just calm enough for me to be aware of how shitty and miserable it was to live in this house. But again, my brain kept it all blocked out. Whose house was I in? How long had I been here? With all these questions, I had to ask the people around me. There was someone next to me who felt just warm enough to be alive, but when I tried to speak to them, I could barely make a sound. I felt all this rust and filth blocking my throat, making me wonder how long it had been since I last spoke. I kept trying until it worked, though the answers I got weren't the ones I wanted.
Hello? Is anyone awake? Where are we? What's going on?
Shh! You have to be asleep now.
But I can't sleep.
Then play dead. You know the rules.
What rules? Whose rules?
He's coming. Play dead.
Who?
Finally, the fear of this presence hit me. I remembered it all now. The torment, the starvation, the torture, my body locked up in fear. It was no use running. I'd already done it. I just had to play dead and wish that I could be spared just this once, because he was coming.
It's not you. Good girl. What about you? No. I knew it! You're awake!
I'm sorry, I was trying!
Why are you up past your bedtime?
I didn't mean to, I swear.
Tell me you're sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's not good enough!
I'm sorry for disobeying you, Father. Please forgive me for dishonoring your rules.
If I ever catch you like this again, I'll chain you up in the basement like that other little shit! Understand? You won't see the sun for the rest of the year! You'll be eating the cats until you learn to behave!
Please, don't put me back down there. I'll do anything.
I didn't sleep at all that night. I spent the remaining hours before morning hatching an escape plan. I realized they had never done much to physically keep us in the house, except for when we were chained to our beds as punishment. They just had us that broken, that unable to think for ourselves. All I could remember was that I knew I just had to get out of that hellhole one way or another. After looking around in my bedroom at all the girls and boys next to me, who I came to realize as my siblings, looking all malnourished and on the verge of death, I refused to let my moment or theirs go to waste, so I quietly talked with them about how we were going to escape. The next morning, before Father came to punish me, I crawled through the window and ran away, then called the police from a nearby neighbor's house. At last, we were free, all of us. I could barely wrap my head around the fact that all those people were my siblings, and those monsters who tortured us were our parents. They're in prison now, and we've left their house to live with foster parents. I just wish I could say that everything is all right now, but after growing up the way we did, none of us will ever be okay. For Father's Day, we wanted to do a story regarding one of the scariest dads out there. The dad in question for this story is a man named David Turpin. You all may have heard about the disturbing viral case called the Turpin case, which consisted of the Turpin family, who was made up of the parents David and Louise Turpin, and their 13 children whose ages varied. What makes this story horrific was how the victims were held imprisoned in their own home for a total of 29 years. While in captivity, the suspects would punish, starve, and hold the victims captive against their own will. After one of the victims, Jordan Turpin, miraculously escaped the home and called 911 to report the unfathomable house of horrors, the public soon learned the awful truth of what David and Louise Turpin did for all those years. When authorities entered the house, they found the victims being held in dark and foul-smelling surroundings. Authorities said the husband and wife pleaded guilty to false imprisonment and various other charges, resulting in 25 years to life, with the possibility of parole after 22 years. That being said, I think it's safe to say that David Turpin is indeed one of the creepiest dads out there.
Ago, a classmate showed me a video of Lois and Peter from Family Guy, engaged in, well, relations that certainly wouldn't be allowed on the air. However, while my friend was talking about how hot Lois was, I had to lie about who my attention was actually drawn to, which was the well-endowed Peter Griffin. Incidentally, this was a major awakening for me, and though a lot of people have called me weird for it, my infatuation with Peter Griffin stuck around as I got older and more experienced. Even recently, as I've started going on Grindr to find hookups, I've been secretly looking for my favorite fat man, or at least the man who can come as close as possible to the likes of Peter Griffin. Eventually, I did one day. His name wasn't Peter, but that's the only name I called him. He looked like Peter in his size and the way he dressed, with the puffy curves of his face and his cute little glasses. We matched and started texting. Then we video called, and I was filled with joy when I found out he also sounded just like Peter Griffin. He didn't seem to mind my fantasy either, which made me feel even better about setting up a date with him. After a lot of flirting, Peter suggested we meet up at a hotel, have some drinks, and then let whatever happens happen. I agreed, of course, and we decided to meet the very next night. Pulling up to the hotel, however, I was starting to get nervous. It wasn't the worst place I've hooked up at, but it was far from the nicest. I went up to the door Peter said he was staying in, and when the door opened, I was shocked at how much he looked exactly like Peter Griffin. I hadn't asked him to do anything extra for my fantasy, but it seemed like he'd really gone the extra mile. Unfortunately, there was something else about him, something he seemed to be hiding, this dark look in his eyes. It felt so off-putting, and it made the whole situation feel way sketchier. I hesitated, but I still went inside with him, wanting to push past my inhibitions and get what I'd wanted for so long. Peter and I started to talk, and I sat down in the chair, not quite ready to get on the bed. I wanted time to get immersed, or at least relaxed, although the conversation with Peter was anything but comforting.
You seem nervous. What's wrong?
Oh, nothing. Just feeling a bit tense.
Relax, it's okay to be tight, if you know what I mean. Sorry, grinder joke. Anyway, why don't I pour you a drink?
Actually, I think I'm good. I don't want any Dahmer stuff to happen.
That's not what you were saying last night. What made you think I'm some sort of monster all of a sudden?
Nothing. It's just, I don't know.
Then drink! Don't chicken out now, you sourpuss. Stop being a party pooper and let me get in your pooper after you take a drink.
Okay. What do you have? After convincing me to drink, Peter pulled out a bottle of nice liquor, but then he turned around to pour out the drinks on the nightstand. He came back a moment later and handed me one of the 2 glasses he had, and we started to drink while continuing to talk. But instead of feeling relaxed, I suddenly started to feel like my mind was being pulled out of my body. I was struggling to maintain balance while just sitting up, so I tried getting to my feet to run out the door. But then Peter grabbed me and threw me on the bed. He had my shirt off in seconds as I fought back against him, feeling myself getting weaker and weaker by the second. He was right on top of me, and with his size, I realized there was no way I could win against him directly. While he kept undressing me, I stopped moving. Then he stepped away for a few seconds to take his clothes off or to grab God knows what. I took that opportunity to gather every ounce of strength I had left and stand up. I slammed into the door before ripping it open and stumbling out into the hall. I ran as fast as I could, screaming, knocking into every single wall. I could hear Peter yelling behind me, but then he disappeared. I made it all the way to reception before collapsing. I couldn't fight it anymore, but I'd done enough to save myself. I woke up in a hospital where I was questioned by cops as soon as I was coherent enough to answer questions. I told them everything that happened in the hotel room between me and Peter, and it was enough to get him arrested. It turns out I wasn't the only one of his victims either. There were 5 others, most of whom weren't as lucky as me. I'm glad to know that he won't be able to hurt anyone else. All I know is that the character which was once in my dreams is now only in my nightmares. Almost every night, I'm back in that hotel room, going through the entire ordeal all over again. The story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a man who used a gay dating app to find victims he could roofie and SA. The suspect we are referring to is Sam Ashley, 30, who contacted men on Grindr before meeting them in Portsmouth. Ashley would then drug them without their knowledge and attack once they were left in a stupefied state. He was found guilty of 4 SA cases, 4 charges of administering a substance with intent, and 2 counts of attempted SA. Ashley had allegedly denied all charges. He met 3 of his victims on Grindr and 1 at a rugby club. 3 of the men he SA'd had their drinks spiked, while another thought he was being offered painkiller tablets for a headache. She added Ashley had been convicted thanks to expert evidence.
This whole thing going around about who would win in a fight between a single gorilla and 100 humans has me thinking about something that happened several years ago. At the time, I was volunteering for an animal rights organization that I will not name, for reasons that will become clear. They sent me to the Democratic Republic of Congo to assist in what I thought was a campaign to preserve a shrinking population of gorillas. When I arrived in the country, I met a man who claimed to be the head organizer of the campaign. From the airport, he led me to a village where we met with a group of armed militants. The organizer, who by this point was the only person I could come close to calling a friend, said these men would be our escorts through the jungle should any hostile animals try to attack us. I was well aware of the potential for danger, though having half a dozen armed guards for just 2 conservationists felt like overkill. After briefly getting to know each other, the organizer finally offered to take me on my first trip to see a family of gorillas who resided in a known area relatively nearby. We were able to trek several miles deeper into the jungle from the village, but before long, we had to walk the rest of the way through dense trees and foliage. As we approached the gorillas' territory, finally, the journey came to an end as we reached a clearing. That's when we were quietly in the presence of gorillas. Through previous encounters with the organizer and his guards, the animals had become slightly accustomed to humans, but I was urged to step no farther than the edge of the clearing. In that moment, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The sight of the gorillas was so much more breathtaking and uncannily human. Even the silverback male in charge of the entire family seemed to care very little about us being there. But then, that majestic moment crashed and burned when the organizer and his armed guards retreated from the clearing by several yards, and their weapons were now trained on me. That's when they directed me to approach the gorillas, the exact opposite of what they had just told me moments ago. I obviously refused, but they started threatening me. I realized that I was walking to my death no matter which way I went. These men never intended to do anything but use me as live bait, for whatever sick purposes they had.
No,
Please don't make me do this. We're friends.
We can still be friends after this. Just walk toward the gorilla.
But he'll rip me apart. Why are you doing this?
Those rich creeps in the city will pay anything for an ounce of ape meat. And that thing right there is sitting on 300 pounds of it. All you gotta do is draw it out so we can get a clear shot. Got it?
No, this is insane. I can't do it. Just let me come back, please.
We're either leaving here with 300 pounds of ape meat or 100 pounds of human meat. Your flesh will sell for an even higher price. Understand? It's you or the gorilla. So what's it gonna be?
Okay.
Get closer! We need it to move!
I'm getting there!
I was looking at my worst nightmare, the face of a deadly gorilla inches away from mine. It was looking right at me as the life drained from its eyes. I'll never forget it. I was in shock after that moment, but the horror didn't end there. The men forced me to take photos for them, posing over the gorilla's remains. They were smiling at their accomplishment while I was nothing but ashamed to be a part of it. The poachers then wrapped the gorilla's body up to conceal it. Then the organizer told me that if I ever revealed the true nature of his operation to anyone, he would have me taken out and sold to cannibals on the black market. Given how much of my information he has, I have had no choice but to obey his order, but I have never gone back to the Congo since. The photos were leaked online. My face was never shown in the pictures. However, it has kept me from trying to be a part of any other wildlife conservation efforts, in case someone were to make the connection. Today, with this asinine discussion about humans fighting a gorilla, I can't stop thinking about what I witnessed, and about how reality is far less fair to gorillas than any hypothetical situation people might make them out to be. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding sickening images of a gorilla believed to have been taken out and being used for a photo opportunity by a group of armed men. Pictures posted online by the conservation group has sparked anger amongst animal rights activists. The organization, called El Association Gorilla, said the animal was taken out illegally, suggesting the men in the photo may be responsible. It was understood the photos were taken near Brazzaville, the capital of the Republic of Congo. In a social media post accompanying the stomach-churning images, the group said, "This is what we never want to see again. These shocking images of a beautiful gorilla taken out illegally. Let us remember once again that the slaughter of protected species is strictly forbidden by Congolese law. It has been mentioned that the apes were being taken out to primarily supply high-end demand for meat in urban centers, where the consumption of ape meat is considered to be prestigious amongst the wealthy. In regards to the 100 men versus 1 gorilla conversation, it's evident that men can of course win with firearms, but without it, well, that's up for you to debate." I've been alone for the past few years. Being 50-something, graying and alone, it was never easy. And because I wasn't social, I didn't have much friends. But thanks to the app Grindr, it helped me connect and date other men. I eventually met this guy. He was a lot younger and seemed to be in his early 30s. After a while, I recognized a spark I hadn't felt in years. At first, we chatted through text, and so, our conversations quickly extended to social media platforms like Instagram and Snapchat. Then, it didn't take long before we started calling each other on the phone. He had a deep voice that made me feel comfortable talking to him.
You're really into an old guy like me? Old? You got experience. That's what I like. You should come over one day and have some cocktail. I'm not talking about drinks either. In time.
The calls grew bolder and spicier. I would nervously flirt and whisper things I hadn't said out loud in decades. A part of me was ashamed because of my old age, but the youthful spirit inside me acknowledged the thrill of the experience. Soon after, video calls followed. Anyone who saw them would agree that he was hot. I knew that connecting online wasn't enough. I had to see him in person, and it was something we both agreed on. We set a date to meet up for a night of wine, Netflix, and business, as we'd put it. So, while waiting for him, I prepped the apartment, dimmed the lights, and poured the wine. When he finally arrived, he was even more handsome in person, a dangerous kind of handsome. We drank, chatted, and laughed as we got to know each other. But the more we drank, the more tension there was between us. We decided to put on Netflix as the heat was building up. Then, it happened. It was spontaneous as hell. It went on for about 5 minutes before we both finally finished. Then, we both laid in bed relaxing after that roller coaster ride. But then that's when the awkwardness began to creep in.
So, you gonna take an Uber or what? It's late, so I just figured. You figured what? Am I some piece of meat you throw out the window? I was going to leave, but now I'm staying. Look, I wanted a one-night stand. That's it, okay? A one-night stand? After I gave you the NASA rocket ship? This is how you treat me? Get the hell out of my house or I'm calling the cops!
Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Then, without another word, he lunged at me. I dropped to the floor and then we wrestled. Time wasn't on my side. If anything, I was losing it. I needed to get to the door fast. The guy was younger and stronger than me. I fought back, clawing, kicking, anything to get him off of me. We were both in our underwear, but the drastic change from passion to aggression was too much for me to handle. He then took a pillow and tried suffocating me. Death had never been so close in my entire life. I was panicking, but as I kicked, I was able to get him off of me enough to get up and run for the door. But that's when he pulled me back and slammed me to the floor. I was dazed. All I remember seeing was him standing over me. And then the next thing I knew, my lights shut off when he made one large jump on my throat. The young man then sat on the couch in a room that was full of passion moments earlier, but was now full of blood. He held a machete, his adrenaline still high, and his entire body was shaking from all that rage. At first, he was merely staring at the floor, but like a madman, he cried and smiled simultaneously, confused and lost in his own thoughts. Then, in the middle of that dark room, he swung his machete, mumbling nonsensical words over and over as the guilt ate away at him. I tried calling him multiple times, but he wouldn't answer my calls, and that was so unlike him. That's when I decided to visit his place, and when I entered the house using a spare key, the stench of iron hit me. It was thick and rich in a sickening way. I then turned on my camera and recorded the entire thing for the police. It was the inside of a horror house where there were bloodstains scattered all over the walls. I tried calling out to my friend, but no one answered. I was hesitant to head upstairs, but I needed the courage to follow the trail of blood leading deeper into the house. When I entered the bedroom, I saw pieces of him all over the floor, then immediately left and called the police. They were able to identify the suspect through Grindr and eventually arrest him. But what makes this case all the more disturbing was how after reviewing the footage I took that day, I could see the killer hiding under the couch. All this time, while taking a video around the house for the cops, he was there the entire time. It gives me chills knowing I could have easily suffered the same fate as my friend. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a gruesome murder scene that was discovered at a Tampa home on East Okara Road. Police say 53-year-old Rob O'Connor was taken out by a man he met on a dating website called Grindr. Lazaro Martinez Rojas is now facing a first-degree charge in O'Connor's passing. Now the victim's best friend is speaking out about the horror of finding his friend. Robert Graytag Jr. said he can't get the images out of his head. It's a horrific thing to walk into a home and find blood in your best friend's house, Graytag said. Investigators say O'Connor and Rojas met on Grindr and then eventually met at O'Connor's home where detectives say the two hooked up. Later, O'Connor asked Rojas to leave. That led to a violent confrontation. Records showed the slaying was caught on home surveillance video. They said it captures Rojas strangling O'Connor and standing on his throat until his body goes limp. Rojas then mutilated the body with a large kitchen knife. After not hearing from O'Connor for several days, Graytag and other friends went to check on him, and that's where they made the horrific discovery. What was even more chilling was how Rojas was still hiding in the house. We didn't know what we were encountering, so I had my camera and I did record the scene. And when I looked back on it, and I saw him under the couch in my recording, my hair just stands on edge now, thinking that you can see his hair sticking out of the couch, said Greytac. Rojas remains in jail with no bond.
My line of work isn't exactly what you would call legal, but it brings in a ton of money. I don't just stand around on some street corner waiting for my clients. I have a very lucrative ad on Craigslist. 1 hour of work brings in hundreds of dollars, and I get to know I've made someone else's evening 1,000 times better. Of course, there are drawbacks. I get all sorts of clients. Young people, old people, skinny guys, fat guys, weirdos, and uglies. Yet only the occasional good-looking man. That, and I could go to prison for it. So I have to be very careful and secretive. I usually have my clients come over to my place, which is why I refuse to do house calls. It's just too dangerous going to a stranger's place. Recently, though, I made an exception. I had a guy respond to my Craigslist ad, and after I did the usual vetting of him to make sure he wasn't a cop, I gave him my number, and to my surprise, the guy sounded exactly like Peter Griffin. At first, I couldn't even get past it. I wasn't sure if he was doing an impression or if he was using some kind of voice changer. But the more I listened to him, the more I realized it was a legitimate guy trying to do a house call.
Oh, come on. I've been saving up for the Quagmire special for months.
I don't do outcalls, sir.
All right. You don't have to do all the Quagmire stuff. Just pretend you're my wife, Lois.
Are you even listening? I'm not coming.
I guarantee you will when I get in.
Sir, you need to—
I'll pay you 10 times, whatever your rate is.
That's $2,000. Are you serious?
Completely.
Okay, fine. Send me the address.
Yay! And you'll wear the khakis and the teal button-up, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Somehow, the guy got me to break one of my biggest rules. I know it wasn't the smartest idea, but the money was just way too good to pass up. The whole Family Guy dress-up thing was just weird as hell, but for the right price, I was accepting. I got dressed, surprisingly already having what I needed for the outfit, then called an Uber. When I arrived at the address, I was freaked out all over again when I realized it looked just like the house from Family Guy. This man was dedicated. I then got out of the Uber and walked up to the door to knock. I knocked, but no one answered. I then knocked again, and even called him. Still, no answer. I started to get upset as I thought I had come all the way for nothing, even wasting money on an Uber. But then, as I spun around in frustration, I saw him looking at me through the window. He was smiling at me in complete darkness, and only moved when I finally saw him. He came around to the front door and opened it, and just as I was beginning to suspect, he also looked exactly like Peter Griffin, with the glasses, the hair, and all the fat.
Hi, I'm Peter. What's your name?
My name is Melissa.
Shut up! Just shut up! Your name's Lois!
Oh, yeah, Lois. I'm so sorry, I just forgot.
That's okay. You remember our deal, right?
Yes, of course.
Come on in.
I went inside and requested the money up front as usual, but then he immediately started taking off all of his clothes. He didn't want to pay until after, but I said I wouldn't do anything without a guarantee of payment. After a little back and forth, he went to grab the cash. I sat on the couch, awkwardly waiting for him. But then, all of a sudden, all the lights turned off, making the house pitch black.
What the hell is going on?
That's when he came into view holding an axe and blocking the front doorway, trapping me inside the room.
There's no way out, Lois.
Please, you don't have to do this. I'll do anything you want. Please, Peter.
I took out 4 people over the years. At least those are the ones people know about. I sure had a lot of fun doing it. People at work would always call me Peter Griffin because I look and sound like him. At first, I didn't get it, but then I watched the show and started really leaning into it. It's as funny as it is disarming, so people never expected me to be a killer. I always loved the thought that the last person those women ever saw was Peter Griffin. Of course, it all had to come to an end eventually. The cops were on my tails for years, and I evaded them for a long time, but they eventually caught me. On the internet, I'm known as the Peter Griffin Killer, and I really just love the way that sounds.
This story was inspired by a disturbing incident regarding a Gilgo Beach serial killer named Rex Heuermann, who was nicknamed Peter Griffin by his colleagues because of the way he looked and goofy persona. Heuermann, 59, was accused of slaughtering 4 night workers in 2009 and 2010 before taunting one of their families using a burner phone. Heuermann, an architect, was arrested on Thursday night outside of his office in Manhattan, with colleagues left shocked by the sudden break in the cold case after nearly 2 decades. The married father of 2 denied taking out Gilgo Beach victims Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. Authorities had been tracking Heuermann for at least a year before swooping outside of his offices in Midtown Manhattan, ending their investigation early over fears he would strike again. They arrested him with a burner phone on his person, with court documents revealing that he used a phone for each of his victims. It was alleged that Heuermann continued to patronize his victims at all hours of the night and was using burner phones to conceal his identity. Authorities made a number of shocking discoveries when the remains of 9 females and a man were found near the Gilgo Beach area between December 2010 and April 2011. Some of the remains found also matched with partial remains found decades earlier as far back as 1996. The man they called Peter Griffin was charged and sentenced accordingly.
I live in a small village in the country of Uganda. To be more specific, I'm from a tribe. Since we are a remote village, we don't have access to the things people have in the cities that make their lives easier. Something as basic as creating food to eat requires everyone to work together at every step of the process. We all have roles we train to fulfill from a young age, so that nothing goes to waste. Since I was a young boy, I've been training to be a hunter, and if it is ever needed, a warrior to protect my village. Unfortunately, I have never been the bravest man in my village. Whenever I was trained to fight, I was always afraid of getting hit. On all the hunting trips, I shadowed the older men of the village. I was always terrified of encountering animals in the forest, of which there are many. We mainly hunt for antelopes and warthogs, which on their own aren't able to attack us. However, there are also leopards, hippos, elephants, crocodiles, and even gorillas, which are capable of ending our lives in a more brutal way other than the smaller animals. Thankfully, in my lifetime, we have yet to lose anyone to the wrath of a wild animal. Recently, I was finally initiated by my elders as a true hunter. They tell me this is a great honor, but really, I have been dreading this day for my entire life. I will no longer have the safety of someone else with me. Just a few days ago, it was my turn to go hunting by myself for the very first time. My worries about failing to secure nourishment for my people were second only to the fear that I would become nourishment for something else. Despite all that, I had no choice but to leave my village for the day, out to where it is never safe for humans.
Holy crap, smells like there's a beast nearby. Please just be a little baby warthog. Just let me go, man. Just let me go. Please, 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 please.
After my near-death encounter with the silverback gorilla, I was too afraid to move from my hiding spot for at least an hour. Only when I was completely sure that the gorilla had run out of energy and returned to its group did I dare stand up and start walking back to the village. I knew that returning before dusk empty-handed, and having also lost my spear, would lead me to shame from everyone in the village. But I had no other choice. As I expected, the elders were furious with me. I was a failure, a disgrace. They tried to force me back into the woods barehanded as punishment, but I refused. In my cowardice, my right to eat was revoked until I successfully took out an animal, proving my worthlessness even more. My best friend stepped in for me and took my place as the hunter for the rest of the day. He only had a few hours left, but he promised to return with an animal. Unfortunately, the sun set lower and lower into the sky as we waited for him eagerly. After a few more hours, there was no sign of him. When night fell, we all became worried and scared for him. This was also one of his hunts alone, and though I had warned him not to, he had gone in the same direction I did, so I knew he would likely run into the gorillas. Everyone agreed to go searching for him in the morning when we could see. I retraced my steps, following where he had gone. I eventually came upon the same clearing where I encountered the gorillas, and what I saw there is something I will never forget. The gorillas were gone, but my friend's body was lying there in 3 separate pieces. The gorillas ripped off his arm and his head. I'd never seen a human so brutally mutilated like that. I always see the shredded corpse of my friend when I close my eyes. I feel unending guilt that he suffered and passed away instead of me, but I just keep thinking about how I could have been the one who met that end. This story was inspired by a horrifying incident regarding a Reddit post that showcases an old article that discusses possibly the first and only authentic record of a gorilla taking out a human. The incident allegedly took place in 1910, and the victim was disclosed as a man named Uganda. Uganda had apparently gone into the forest to cut some bamboo when unknowingly surprised a family of gorillas. That's when the man was attacked by a large male gorilla. When Uganda's remains were discovered later on, it was found without the head and neck, which was nearby. This story goes to show how strong and lethal a single gorilla can be when considering the 100 men versus gorilla debate.
I always had terrible luck on Grindr. Despite still being young, I'm actually trying to find someone to settle down with. Of course, everyone on Grindr is just looking to hook up. However, I recently found this guy named Steven who was different than most on the app. He was a little on the older side, but seemed to be exactly what I wanted. He was nice to talk to over the phone, and unlike me, he had his whole life put together. He was a vegetarian in the Navy, graduated from Oxford, and had quite a lucrative career, but he didn't go into detail about what he did for work, as he said it was classified. Unfortunately, he wasn't really my type, physically speaking. Even though it looked really well done, I could tell his hair was fake. My dad always used to fuss about his toupee, so I know how to spot one. That, and, well, he was just kinda ugly. I only gave him the time of day because he was the first guy I'd met with who was willing to get to know me before trying to sleep with me. I thought I'd finally found someone who wasn't just out to use my body, and since it was a struggle for me to meet people by going out, I didn't want to pass on him without giving him a chance. So, after Steven and I talked for a few days, we made plans for a date, which I stressed would not be ending with intercourse. He wanted to host me for dinner, claiming he'd make me anything I wanted. I was excited on the way there, hoping his wealth and cooking skills could make up for his face, but I was also quite nervous, as this was my first time actually meeting someone from Grindr. Sadly, his apartment building looked a lot humbler than I was expecting for a man who graduated from Oxford, but I figured he just preferred to live modestly. As I made my way to his apartment, however, this proved not to be the case. I realized I was almost in a dark, unfamiliar neighborhood, meeting up with a stranger I met online. I almost backed out of the whole thing, but I was already right there, so I didn't want to be rude. I took a deep breath and went through with it by knocking on the door. Where the hell is this guy? Oh, hey!
Good evening. What brings a fine fellow like yourself to my door?
You're Steven, right? I'm Daniel. We're supposed to, never mind. I'm actually not sure if I have the right place. I'm gonna go.
No, you do. I was just being silly. I'll stop. Come in. I'm sure you're used to saying that, huh?
To be honest, I don't know. You don't exactly look like your pictures. Sorry, I don't think I should.
I'll take that as a compliment. Everyone always tells me I look better in person, right?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, come on, nipple rings. I know you're being nervous, but I won't bite. I promise. Just come inside. It's getting cold out here, and that's not good for the both of us downstairs, you know.
I'm not sure if I can.
I'm making us dinner, remember?
Yeah. Okay, I guess I'll... Whoa, hey!
There we are. It's a bit of a mess, I know, but it's got character.
Where's the dinner?
Oh, you mean the pan-seared, wild-caught salmon fillets with garlic lemon roasted asparagus? You see, the thing is, I kind of forgot to go to the farmer's market this morning.
You liar! You're just like everyone else. You just want to use me for my dark hole like some cheap streetwalker.
You got me. I didn't even go to Oxford.
I want to leave. Let me out of here.
Well, I would, but it seems as though someone is blocking the door. Sorry, I'm just no help at all.
You slimy piece of shit! I'm calling the cops! Shit! Get back! Stay away from me!
Whoa! You win, okay? Look, I'm sorry about the phone. Let me give you some cash to pay for it. Then you can leave, all right?
This is such bullshit. I'm never doing this again.
Looks like you brought a knife to a gunfight. Now drop it.
Okay.
Now drop your pants. First, I'm gonna enjoy myself. Then, I'm gonna see how far this cold steel barrel goes in you before I pull the trigger.
This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a male British serial killer and offender named Stephen Port. He has been convicted for taking out 4 young males, along with several other offenses. The victims were Anthony Walgate, Gabriel Cavari, Daniel Whitworth, and Jack Taylor, who can be seen here. Port went by the moniker the Grindr Killer, as he met his victims online through the dating app Grindr. He lured the victims to his flat, then drugged and violated them, before dumping their bodies close by. The deaths were not seen as suspicious by police until after the 4th death. Of course, this sparked public outrage and accusations against the police. Ultimately, Port received a sentence of life imprisonment.
I had the worst Father's Day experience of my life. It wasn't even with my dad, but with the man I was seeing at the time, Chris. He happened to have a wife who was pregnant, as well as 2 kids already, so it was a messy affair from the very beginning. I was never proud of it, of course. I didn't want to be a homewrecker, but we just sort of fell into each other's arms one night at a bar. Then he told me about his family afterwards. I figured the damage had already been done, so I decided to keep him around. He was the one who had to keep it a secret. and I just had to deal with feeling shitty about it for a few days. Chris would always sell out to his wife and come over every time she went on a business trip for work, just so he could sleep with me. Unfortunately, while I only ever wanted Chris for the pipe, he eventually developed serious feelings for me. It started out small, but then it quickly got out of hand. We started seeing each other more and hooking up more behind his wife's back. And if what we were doing was already bad enough, I had no desire to get involved with his life any more than I already was. But Chris already made up his mind about what he wanted to do, without considering my intentions at all. Before I knew it, Chris admitted to me that he wanted to divorce his wife on Father's Day and start a fresh life with me. This ended up being our only real fight as I tried to put my foot down, but Chris was unrelenting. That was the night that I learned just how obsessed Chris was with me, and it was absolutely disturbing. Please, just think about it. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me.
I can't do this anymore. I already told you this whole thing makes me feel guilty as hell.
Come on, please don't leave me. You're the only one that can get me up.
Chris, stop it!
I want to do this every night, and I don't care what I have to do to make that happen.
Stop guilt-tripping me! I need to move on from this shit! How do you think I would feel if I came between you and your family? What about your wife? Your kids? You can't just abandon them!
Screw them! I choose you over them any day.
You can't be serious. You're just drunk.
And high off you.
Which will wear off when you sober up. Just accept it.
No! I won't accept anything. We're meant to be together, and I'm gonna prove it. My bitch wife and those two little shits don't mean anything to me. And once they're not a problem anymore, we can finally be together. No more secrets, no more hiding. Just boom, boom, bang, bang. And no fat ex-wife on my ass anymore. Just me and you forever.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to remove them from the equation.
No, stop. Chris, listen to me. You better not do anything. And you know what? Just get out. It's Father's Day tomorrow. Go be with your family and leave me the hell alone. I don't want to be with you anymore. You're crazy.
After I kicked him out, I had this horrible feeling hovering over me that just wouldn't go away. I didn't know if Chris was serious about any of the stuff he said. I decided to ignore him for a while. Father's Day was supposed to be a special day for him and his family, so I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near it. The next day, however, despite it literally being Father's Day and his family being with him, he wouldn't stop calling and texting me. I ghosted him, but I was honestly worried he would show up at my apartment. I figured I would reach out to him the next day, but by then, it was already too late. That afternoon, I put on the news and saw the most shocking, most terrifying thing that made my heart sink. I saw that Chris's entire family had been reported missing earlier in the morning. That's when I finally answered his call, and he was absolutely sobbing over the phone. I tried to console him, telling him the police and probably the whole town was looking for them, but that didn't seem to offer him any comfort. He asked to come over, but of course I told him not to. That would have been the worst possible thing for him to do no matter what the case was, but I kept in touch with him over the next several hours. I had my suspicion that he had done something, although I never wanted to believe it. I started asking him here and there if he had taken them somewhere, but he denied everything. Suddenly, the next day, the text stopped coming from him altogether, and I knew he had done it. I soon found out that he had been arrested, and before long, he confessed to taking out his entire family just to be with me. It's been years since the tragedy. The case went viral after videos circulated of Chris behaving paranoid and suspicious after getting interrogated by his neighbors and the police. I've managed to keep my name out of the public eye despite all the attention the case got. I have to live with the guilt of what I had to do with it. I destroyed that entire family. That woman and her children are gone because of me. This story was inspired by a horrific Father's Day incident regarding one of the most evil dads out there. The dad we're referring to is a man named Chris Watts. On August 13, 2018 in Frederick, Colorado, involved the tragedy of Shannon Watts, who was pregnant, and her two children, Bella and Celeste. The perpetrator, Christopher Lee Watts, initially denied any knowledge of their whereabouts, but later confessed to taking them out. The case garnered attention due to Watts' affair and his changing accounts of the events leading to the slayings. The affair was with a co-worker, Nicole Kissinger, who was unaware that he was still married and cooperated with the police in the investigation. After a police investigation revealed his infidelity, he ultimately admitted to strangling Sharon during a confrontation about the marriage and taking out the other victims to conceal the crime. Colorado authorities released surveillance footage captured by a neighbor's security camera, showing Chris Watts loading up his pickup truck hours after he took out the victims. In the footage, Watts can be seen loading a gas can into the bed of his truck. Next, the video shows Watts backing the vehicle into his home's garage. Investigators believe Watts used that very truck to transport the bodies to a remote oil work site, where they were found days later. There was also another video set up by the neighbors, filming Chris watching surveillance footage of himself that night. Watts tries nervously to explain his behavior away that morning, telling the officer that he had moved the truck from its usual spot because it had been easier to lug everything with all the tools I had to bring in, and said he had been loading the truck early that morning to prepare for a busy workday. But after Watts walks out of the neighbor's house, the neighbor was already starting to question Chris's unusual behavior, saying stuff like, "He's not acting right," and seemed fidgety and rocking back and forth. He was loading tools, but I thought that was a little bit odd because I had never seen him really back the truck into the driveway. Not ever. He always parked it out front, so I definitely thought it was kind of odd. Watts was later charged and ultimately received 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole.
I used to work at this Burger King that wasn't a large or busy location, so it wasn't a 24-hour restaurant. There are only 2 shifts, opening and closing. My boss relies on me to open the store almost every morning since I've been working here for years and also knew all the protocols. I clock in at around 5 a.m., but for the first few hours I'm working completely on my own as I barely get any customers. The only customers I really served were the early birds at the drive-thru, if I got any. But at 8 a.m., my backup finally arrives to help me with the morning rush. From there, the rest of the day goes by in a busy blur. During one of the morning shifts, I heard the door open, followed by the most thunderous footsteps imaginable. For a split second, I thought an earthquake had flung the door open, but then I saw the fattest guy I'd ever seen. He made me think there should be a category above morbidly obese because this behemoth of a man had 100 chins and more folds than a dirty laundry basket. The immature kid in me thought I encountered the real-life Peter Griffin, but when compared to this guy, Peter Griffin could be a Victoria's Secret model. If this guy was Peter Griffin, he wasn't getting on top of Lois anytime soon. Even if she wanted to get on top, I doubt she or anyone could find his junk underneath all that fat. It took a considerable amount of time for this man to make his way to the counter, where I was waiting for him, and the interaction I had with him next still baffles me. Good morning and welcome to Burger King. What would you like to order?
I want 5 Whoppers and 5 chicken fries.
Sorry, sir, but we're only serving breakfast right now. If you come back at 10 a.m., we can get that for you.
What did you just say?
I said we aren't serving Whoppers or chicken fries right now. Those are on the lunch menu, not breakfast.
But this is Burger King! Where are the burgers? I want it my way!
Sir, please don't shout.
Give me my morning cholesterol! Bitch!
Sir, I can't give you what you want, not for another 4 hours.
But I want it now!
Suddenly, the man went for my throat. He almost grabbed me, but he was caught short by his massive stomach fat. I stepped back in awe as he kept cussing me out and started trying to climb over the counter. However, I felt safe, as I didn't expect for a second that this fat lard would be able to accomplish such a physical feat. I just kept screaming at him, telling him to get out. But then, to my sheer disbelief, he got over. He then barreled toward me like a fat NATO. Then, it was like a human tsunami was barreling towards me. I quickly grabbed my phone and said I was going to call the police unless he left. I told him I'd let him go and wouldn't tell anyone if he would just go. In the end, I think the only thing that saved me was the fact that he got out of breath. Without saying much, he turned around and left. I was relieved and began cleaning the mess he made before my coworker showed up. I decided to keep my word and not mention what happened to anyone. As funny as it might have been in some ways, it was a terrifying moment for me. I just went on with the rest of my day like nothing happened. The next morning, I had work again and I was exhausted. It took me a moment when I put the key in the door that it was already unlocked. I figured someone on the closing team forgot to lock the doors again, but when I stepped inside, I heard something weird coming from the kitchen. I made my way over to the source of the sound, which turned out to be at the deep fryer. What I saw there, I'll never forget. It was the same fat-ass Peter Griffin from yesterday, with his head stuck in the frying oil.
I told you I needed my morning cholesterol! Yeah! You better run, bitch boy!
I ran for my life. If I'd been standing a little closer, he could have grabbed me. Thankfully, I managed to get away and was outside the Burger King. He wasn't even chasing me. I called the police and they arrived within about 15 minutes. When they went inside, they found him still drinking the used oil from the deep fryer, practically bathing in it. Since then, this guy's mugshot has become a bit of a meme. I get it. He's a ridiculously fat man acting in perfect character by guzzling gallons of the most unhealthy liquid a person could possibly drink, aside from literal poison. For me, though, there's really nothing funny about it. He could have killed me, twice. That disgusting face is my nightmare. This story was inspired by a weird and creepy incident regarding a man has been put on a strict healthy diet by his concerned wife due to his obesity, but such torturous deprivation had taken a severe toll on the man that it resulted in such a bizarre crime. The man from Florida found a strange way to cheat on his diet by breaking into a fast food restaurant in the wee hours of the morning to drink an astounding volume of more than 25 gallons of used oil from the deep fryers. The Miami Police Department got a call about a break-in at a Burger King restaurant at around 2 a.m., and officers arrived on the scene in just a matter of minutes. Police found 510-pound Romeo Carter at the fast food restaurant, shockingly drinking oil directly from the deep fryers. The 41-year-old man has surprisingly already consumed dozens of gallons of cooking oil, but apparently was still not satisfied by the time the authorities arrived. Carter appeared to have an apparently unquenchable thirst, but shockingly for cooking oil at that. Police officers arrested Carter on the site and he was charged with burglary, trespassing, theft by unlawful taking, and criminal mischief. Carter was eventually released on bail and tried to explain to the media why he did such a bizarre act. He said that his wife put him on a tofu and vegetable diet and that he couldn't take it anymore. Carter then waited until she was asleep and went to the restaurant to get a couple of burgers, but found it closed. He said he was hungry and depressed and that he
Totally lost it.
I used to work at a zoo that had a gorilla exhibit, but I ended up quitting. For years, I've tried to forget the reason for it, but since everyone on the internet seems to be arguing over 100 people fighting one gorilla, I figured I'd put in my 2 cents. Faced with this memory, I'm convinced that 100 men wouldn't even stand a chance against a gorilla. The gorilla could probably mow its way through 1,000 men. They're just too strong and too vicious. When I worked at the zoo, I was in the proximity of large and dangerous animals almost every day. I wasn't a handler though, just a cleaner, so I was always separated from the animals by glass or heavy locked doors. In the case of the gorillas specifically, they would be lured into one section of their enclosure and then locked inside while we came in and cleaned up the empty section. Just basic maintenance and scraping up mountains of gorilla shit. Everyone who worked at the zoo had varying degrees of emotional attachment to the captive animals. Some people were extremely passionate about them, but nobody else had quite the obsession as the person I worked closest with. I won't mention his name out of respect for his privacy, but he was my friend. This guy was absolutely crazy about gorillas. He would always talk about how much he wanted to interact with them face to face, without the glass dividing them. Sometimes, He'd even joke about how he could take a gorilla on if he had to, talking about how he just had to tire it out. At least, I thought he was joking, but deep down, I knew this guy had a psychopathic lack of fear when it came to the reality of just how strong a gorilla is. Even the ones bred in captivity would become hyper-violent without a moment's notice. I knew this. Everybody who worked there knew this, but my friend was in a deep state of denial. Or maybe it was just pure delusion. Him and I had multiple lengthy discussions about it while we were working together. Most of the time we just went in circles.
Man, all I'm saying is if Coco the gorilla can sit next to a human, sign words to them, and pet a damn kitten without hurting it, I bet I could shake its hand. Dude, are you insane? Are you trying to get your face mauled? A gorilla doesn't understand the concept of shaking hands or sign language, dumbass. Well, we'd have to train them, of course. People already do it with chimps. It'd be easier if I knew the gorilla from birth, but I'd just have to learn its boundaries while it learns mine. I can slowly teach it the ways of being a human while it teaches me how to be a gorilla. Maybe I can ease him in by feeding him a banana. Or maybe your banana. Dude, what has your dealer been selling you lately? You're talking a bunch of bullshit right now, and you're gonna get fired even if you survive the encounter, idiot. Shut up! I'm gonna prove that man and gorilla can coexist, because I'm not a chicken shit loser like you. I just need to work up a little bit more courage. And how are you gonna do that? Maybe I just need a little booger sugar first. Come on, let's do it together, man. What do you say? Let's hit some rails, then hop that rail, huh? Come on, it'll be fun!
I knew probably better than anyone how much of a danger that guy was. I never reported his problematic behavior to HR. I didn't want him to lose his job over what could have been nothing more than banter. After all, no matter how serious he sounded, I never truly believed him 100%. I mean, who would actually climb into a pit with a bunch of gorillas? Then, one day, I went to work not knowing if it would be my last day at the job. I was assigned to work just outside the gorilla enclosure along with my friend. At some point, I thought of something funny to say, but when I turned to talk to him, he was jumping down into the gorilla pit. I ran to the barrier and screamed at him to get out. Just seconds after his feet hit the ground, the largest gorilla in the zoo came out of nowhere. It charged at my friend and snatched him, then started slamming him against the ground like a rag doll. I screamed for help while the gorilla tore my friend apart, dragging him across the rocks and mounting his broken body. I tried to grab anything I could throw at the gorilla to distract it, but nothing worked. I couldn't do anything except wait for the security officers to shoot the gorilla with a tranquilizer dart. By the time all the hell was over and the gorilla passed out, my friend was completely motionless. I was sure that he was dead already, but miraculously, he survived. He had a severe traumatic brain injury and broken bones all over his body. I think anyone would understand why I quit that job on the spot after witnessing what I did. I still think about it to this day no matter how much I try not to. It only lasted seconds, maybe minutes, but the damage the gorilla did to a human body in that time was catastrophic. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a gorilla at the Madrid Zoo, who attacked a keeper, leaving her with 2 broken arms and a head injury, the zoo announced on Sunday. The woman, 46, was performing daily tasks at around 10:15 a.m. local time on Sunday morning in an area of the animal's enclosure that is protected by a triple door system when she found herself face to face with Malabo, the zoo's 29-year-old male gorilla. The zoo team managed to keep the animal away, and later a veterinary team anesthetized it with a tranquilizer dart. The animal was brought to its interior enclosure where it was eventually calmed down. The reasons why the animal was able to access the area are being investigated internally. However, according to reports, the animal was startled just before eating his breakfast and then pounced on the keeper. The keeper was hospitalized in serious condition, emergency services said. The woman suffered a head injury, a chest trauma with multiple fractures, and open fractures in both of her arms. The zoo said Malabo has been raised by caretakers since birth and is usually quote-unquote close to caregivers. This just goes to show how dangerous a gorilla can be to a human, even if outnumbered by 100. The first thing they did to me was throw me on the ground like a dog. At least, that's as far back as I can remember. I was in this huge windowless room with hundreds of other people. We were all wearing either green or pink, and the pink people were wearing black masks over their faces. Some of them were holding weapons too. As far as I could tell, with the gigantic slides and jungle gyms and the sand everywhere, we were supposed to be in some sort of oversized playground, but it was clear that nobody was there to have fun. That was the only thing I understood. Despite the dizzyingly high ceilings, this was a dungeon. Only, I had no memory of how I got there. I'd almost forgotten who I was. I was one of these people wearing green, with numbers on them. The masked men in pink had corralled us in there for some reason, and it didn't look like it was going to be good. And there weren't just old men there, but women too. And some of the people around me looked young enough to be my kids. Everyone looked so afraid, begging and pleading to be let out. I didn't even have the faintest idea of entering this room, or what could be outside of it.
Hey! Pay attention!
What do you want from me?
Take the tin!
Okay, I have it. What do I do now?
You may begin when the timer starts.
Timer? I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Come on, please. You gotta tell me. I can't remember anything.
Cut out the shape.
The shape? What the hell does that even mean?
One more word and I'll eliminate you before the game begins.
Okay, I understand.
That was it. Those were the last words I managed to get that faceless guard to speak to me. Then, the timer started. 10 minutes were on the clock, and already counting down before I had any clue what to do. I started panicking, looking around at what the others were doing. They were all opening their tins and taking out a needle, so I did the same. I popped the lid off, and sure enough, there was my needle. But then there was also the shape. The one thing I was supposed to cut out with nothing but that single measly little needle. It wasn't a basic shape like a triangle or a square. It was the most complicated, psychotic abomination of an outline stamped into a thin layer of brittle poured sugar. It looked like a triangle drawn by a schizophrenic sketch artist tripping on every substance known to man. I was completely and totally screwed.
You've gotta be joking. No, this isn't fair. How am I supposed to do this? Psst, hey, you, what's going on? Do we really only have 10 minutes? Yes, so shut up. We don't have time to talk. Shit. Okay. Damn it, this is gonna take forever. There has to be a better way.
Even with all the tricks I stole from other people, the task was impossible. With just 10 minutes and such a complicated shape to carve out, it was hopeless. Then, other people started to break their cookies, and the consequences for failure became painfully obvious. The penalty was death, delivered by the armed guards standing over us. Whatever they shot us with, it wasn't normal. It was some kind of poison or venom.
No, wait, please, let me try again.
With people getting taken out all around me, my nerves were out of control. I couldn't stop my hands from shaking. It was only a matter of time before I screwed up. Just a few seconds after I cracked it, that guard was standing over me. I knew what was coming next. But then, even though the mask concealed any emotions he might have been having, I could tell that he was hesitating. He didn't waste a second with that woman, but with me. His weapon was pointed right at me, yet he wasn't doing anything. I realized I just might have a chance if I could somehow reach this person and get them to stop the madness.
Please don't do it. I have a family. My wife is pregnant and my son is trying to go to college. I just wanted to win some money to pay for his tuition. All I wanted was for us to be happy. Please.
Number 51, why is he still alive?
Don't listen to that. Don't listen to any of them. You can stop this.
Number 51, kill him.
No, please.
Kill him!
Just let me go! I'm begging you!
You're lucky, 51. A few more seconds and you'd be dying with him.
I understand.
Tell me, 51, why did you hesitate?
That man, he was my father.
Your commitment to the game is admirable. Now, eliminate player 137.
Roger.
Grindr made it so easy. When I wanted some action, I didn't even have to leave the house. All I had to do was swipe through a few dozen men, message a handful of them, talk with one or two for a bit, and then bam, they'd be sprawled out on my bed within a few hours of the onset of my desire. I entirely reject the idea of going anywhere after sleeping with someone, so I always made them come over to my place. For the longest time, I would have men coming in and out of my house, not having any lasting effect on my life. I abhorred the thought of relationship drama consuming my life, so I never let anyone get close. But that all went out the window with this guy named Ben. At first, there was nothing particularly interesting or attractive about Ben. If anything, I thought he was actually kind of ugly for my standards. But I guess I was in a bit of a dry spell, or I just didn't care what he looked like as long as he could deliver. I didn't really think much of it. I just knew that he said he was down to come over for a good time. So I sent him my address and got ready while he was on his way. When I opened the door, I realized I had made a mistake. Ben was far uglier in person than he seemed in his photos, which I should have expected. He just kind of stood there like a coat rack, with no real style or thought put into the way he was dressed, with a long ugly scarf as the cherry on top. I swear, if he had smelled, I would have just slammed the door in his face right then and there. I only let him in because I was too lazy to go through the moderate effort of going back on Grindr to find a new hookup. However, I only regretted my decision even more. When Ben walked in, he didn't take off his jacket or shoes. He just looked around and said I had a nice place before asking to use the bathroom. I told him where it was down the hall. Then I took a seat on the couch. I had set out a bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the coffee table, like I like to do when I have guests. And of course, I was waiting for him to get back before opening the bottle. I like to make it obvious that I've put nothing nefarious in the wine. I expected Ben to take a few seconds, maybe a minute or two, but then the minutes kept ticking by with no sign of him. I was wondering what in God's name he was doing in there. Had I just let some homeless man wander into my house to shower in my sink and savage my toilet? Finally, I got up to go check on him. The bathroom door was closed, and the light was on, but I didn't hear the fan or any running water. I knocked on the door and asked him if he was okay, only to hear silence, and then to my left, a bump from inside my bedroom. I called out to Ben and asked him what he was doing. I heard him say he got lost, which I instantly knew that he was lying. To catch him by surprise, I barged into my room. There he was, fully clothed, shoving the contents of my nightstand into his pockets. Even my iPad was sticking out from his coat. I rushed up on him and started ripping things out. He fought back against me, but I was so angry that I didn't feel any of the pain as he was hitting me. Finally, I couldn't see anything else to grab, so I shoved him away. He kept trying to make excuses, like he was just looking for something, or that he was going to take the stuff out to the living room, but it was obviously just a bunch of bullshit. I had to yell in his face 10 times to get the hell out of my house before he took the first step out of my bedroom. It had been a complete failure of a night, and I figured he was probably still walking out with something of mine. But at least I was walking him down the hall, and wouldn't have to deal with him after a few more seconds. That's what I thought anyway. But those few seconds didn't play out exactly how I thought.
I can't believe you. I had a feeling you weren't even gay. You just wanted to rob me, you son of a bitch. Get out before I change my mind about calling the cops. Hey, don't stop. The door is right there, asshole. Would you still be interested in sharing that wine? Excuse me? Why would I want to share anything with you? I just caught you stealing from me. Were you dropped on your head as a child? Hello, dumbass, turn around. What is this? Sweet Shiraz. Very nice. Like you even know what that is. Give me that. You should have minded your own business.
This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a gay man who was strangled, taken out, and then had his body doused in bleach by a man he met on Grindr. Victor Najero Batanzo's remains were found in his apartment in Houston, Texas. Prosecutors found that his truck, iPad, and iPhone had been stolen. Benjamin Davis, 29, was spotted driving Batanzo's stolen truck and was arrested by investigating officers. Davis told police that he joined Grindr after hearing that it was a good place to find people to rob. He struck up a conversation with Batanzo's on the gay dating app, and the pair arranged to meet and hook up at the victim's apartment. However, Davis went to the apartment with the express intention of robbing his victim. Once inside the apartment, he allegedly knocked Betanzos unconscious and used a scarf to strangle him. Once Betanzos was gone, Davis allegedly doused the body in bleach in an effort to get rid of any evidence that could tie him to the crime. He then fled the scene, taking some of Betanzos' possessions and stealing his truck. Davis has a history of violence, according to police. He was charged and sentenced accordingly. My nightmares kept me up on the third night. We'd been through 2 games already, and we were down half the number of people that started. The way the guards took us out with no mercy, no hesitation, not even the slightest hint of remorse. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm sure it was on everyone's mind. The sleeping area was dark and silent, except for the few people crying as quietly as they could. Nobody was actually asleep. By then, we'd all realized that even though there wasn't a game happening, we weren't safe in our beds. Most people grouped up into teams thinking they'd be protected, but I only had one friend. He was in the bunk below me, and we took turns sleeping and keeping watch. It was my turn to sleep, though I couldn't shut my eyes without seeing the face of someone I saw get taken out right in front of me. The only thing left of them was a few $1,000 sitting in the giant golden piggy bank, hanging from the ceiling in the center of the room. The whole game felt as ridiculous as it was terrifying, with the hundreds of people in the room still vying to win. I wasn't optimistic about my chances. Just as I was finally about to get some shut-eye, I was in for a rude awakening.
Hey, wake up!
What do you want?
I have an idea. Let's go take out the other players while they're asleep, catch them off guard, and then get them out of the game. It'll improve our odds of winning. You're insane. You can't go around killing people. It's not against the rules. Besides, it's only a matter of time before someone else gets the same idea. We might as well get ahead of the curve. No way. Nobody said anything about that. Listen, you little chicken shit. Just look at them. They're all asleep and vulnerable. It's the perfect time for an attack. If we don't want those bigger groups to come after us, we have to act now. I won't help you. I'm not a monster. Come on, don't you see all that money? It could be ours. We just have to take out the competition. No. What was that you said about your wife being sick? Don't you need the money to help her? Isn't that why you're here? I'm not a murderer. Well, I'll be one if you don't grow a pair of nuts! Dude, where the hell did you get that? If you aren't with me, then you're against me. I'll have to gut you first. Okay, fine. I'll help you.
I don't know how my friend found that knife, but it didn't matter. He used it to pressure me into helping him. We talked about how we would do it, so I forced myself to say everything I was about to do was in self-defense. It was me or them, according to my friend's plan. I wouldn't have to take anyone out directly. I just had to knock them over or hold them down while he did all the cutting. I could keep my eyes closed while he was busy, so I wouldn't have to watch. We snuck out from our side, hiding between the bunks to make our way across the room to the stragglers sleeping on their own. When we found our first victim, I could feel my heart beating in my chest. My whole body felt like it was on fire, but right next to me, my friend was calm, collected, and ready to carry out the plan. I crept up behind the bunk and watched the person in it breathing. It seemed like they were asleep. I hesitated, but my friend was behind me, waiting for me to start. I had no choice. That's when I pinned the man down. Then my friend rushed over and slit his throat. I watched the man try to scream for help until my friend pulled me off to take someone else out. We raced to find our next victim, but we'd set off a chain reaction and the whole room was in the middle of it all. We found an old woman hiding in the corner. I didn't think. I just grabbed her and ripped her out into the open where my friend cut her open. I had to keep moving. If I stayed still, I was dead. We kept going, searching and taking out everyone in sight. Then we found a couple huddled together underneath a bunk. I dragged the man out as he tried to fight back, telling his wife to run. He almost got to his feet, but my friend was there to cut his throat before he could get the chance. After him, it was the woman. After watching what he did to that innocent woman, I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I couldn't live with any more guilt, so while my friend was distracted, I ran away. I went back to our bunks where I knew it was safer. Then I hid nearby. All I could hear was the screaming, just never-ending screaming. Eventually, my friend found me. He was covered in even more blood, and he still had that knife.
Congratulations, man! You finally grew a pair! You need to stop this. Let's just play the game fairly now, okay? Do you know why I had to slaughter all those people? Do you? Because the less people there is, the more money in the piggy bank? Exactly! Wait, no! Please! Ah!
I always wanted my son Isaiah to grow up with his father present in his life. I made sure I got married before I had any children to make sure of it. But 5 years into our son's life, I found out the cheating scumbag had been sleeping with prostitutes almost the entire time we were together. I had no choice but to divorce him. Over the years, Isaiah's father has come in and out of our lives. I would be happy to say that his son looks up to him, but obviously, he hasn't set a great example. I've basically done all the actual work to raise Isaiah, and for many years, I didn't have the time to date other men. That's why I was so happy when I met James. I felt like I finally found a decent man to date and bring around Isaiah. James and I have been together for 2 years now. Things are wonderful between us, but sadly, Isaiah never got along with him. When it started out, Isaiah made it clear that he would never let James replace his father, but I could never seem to get him to understand that wasn't what was happening. I did want James to be his stepfather when we married, but I just wanted Isaiah to see that there was more than one kind of man that he could grow up to become. Unfortunately, James didn't exactly handle the situation well either. He was patient at first, but after so many arguments and so much yelling at each other, he eventually gave up on trying to get through to him. After that point, there was nothing but animosity between them. James hated Isaiah almost as much as Isaiah hated him, for getting in the way of his relationship with me, for constantly threatening him, and even making it so that he was worried about having children with me. Slowly, I realized it went even further than that. James was actually scared of Isaiah, and he had every right to be. I started to lose touch with my son, and he got more out of control every day. He became more aggressive and violent as the days went by, punching holes in the wall and increasing his threats towards James. One day, close to Father's Day, James and Isaiah fought physically for the first time. It happened so suddenly. James was over at my house while Isaiah was with his father. I went to the bathroom for a few minutes, and during that time, Isaiah came home and saw James on the couch. Thinking he had been alone in the house, Isaiah got furious because he thought James had started living with me. I heard the initial yelling from the bathroom, but by the time I had rushed out to stop them, it had already descended into chaos.
Get the hell out of my mother's house! You don't live here! Back off, kid! I'm sick of you trying to control us!
Stop it, both of you! This is ridiculous!
Shut up, skank! You're the one who got with this piece of shit instead of being with Dad! Don't call your mother a skank, you little punk! I should beat your ass for that! You're not my father, bitch!
God damn it, I said stop! What the hell is wrong with you guys?
Well, who are you gonna kick out of the house? Your son or your man?
Neither.
Screw this! I'm going back to Dad's! Go ahead, punk! Run away!
I was at my wit's end with both of them. Despite James knowing how volatile Isaiah was, his ego always got the better of him and he tried to put Isaiah in his place. Having never even been a father, he always failed miserably and made things worse. They had only been left alone for a minute before they started fighting, and even though I was right there, Isaiah still got violent. My only hope was that they would eventually bury the hatchet, but that seemed extremely unlikely. Father's Day was coming up, and I had plans for James, Isaiah, and his father to meet with other members of the family around. The idea was that they could all talk without fighting, since they wouldn't want to embarrass each other in front of the entire family. Tragically, we never got to that point. The day before Father's Day, I was at work, and I kept getting texts from Isaiah. It was all just threats. Horrible threats that he was going to kill James for Father's Day. I was absolutely terrified, but I didn't want to call the cops until I was 100% sure I had to. Instead, I got out of work early and raced home. I didn't know what I was going to walk into. I was hoping that James would be at the house alone on his day off like he was supposed to be, but I just knew Isaiah was going to be there causing problems. I was right, but I had no idea how long he had been there, and I could not have prepared for what had been done to him by the time I arrived. James's car was missing from the driveway. The front door was wide open, and there was blood coming through the doorway. I stepped inside and found James on the floor. He was a goner by then. I collapsed to my knees and called 911, but there was nothing they could do to help James. They went after my son and arrested him, and now the man I love is gone. My only child is in prison, and his father blames me for all of it. This story was inspired by a disturbing incident regarding a male who was accused of taking out his mom's boyfriend on Father's Day. The victim was a male named James Austin, who was found taken out by a firearm in Damascus, Maryland. The suspect was a male named Isaiah Brown Hawkins, who allegedly stole the victim's car, then pulled out a firearm and told his mom, "I'm going to blank your man," according to court documents. A short time later, the suspect did exactly what he set out to do several times and then fled. A witness told police. Police attempted to stop him when he was seen in a stolen car with an alleged streetwalker at a shopping center. He allegedly rammed police cars, then ran into the woods. Officers took him into custody after a brief chase and found the firearm in the woods which matched the crime. Brown Hawkins was charged for armed carjacking and taking out his stepdad. In addition to the case, Brown Hawkins allegedly had help from his friend, 19-year-old Kamani Imes. He's accused of providing one of the weapons and encouraging Brown Hawkins to finish off Austin. He was also charged and sentenced accordingly.
The guards escorted us through the maze of hallways once again. I'd come so close to death so many times that nothing about it felt like a game anymore. It was just a prison, and I was numb to everything. 2 games ago, I figured it was best not to think about it too much, but at this point, I wasn't thinking about anything at all. Eventually, we were dumped out into a large circular room with a smaller circular platform in the middle. We were surrounded by doors, but where they led was anyone's guess, and I wasn't guessing, though a gnawing feeling of fear and panic that started growing in my stomach. I followed the herd onto the platform, raised off the ground by a single step. Then, someone started talking to us over the loudspeaker. It was that robot bitch again. I hated her. I wouldn't listen to anything she said, except I knew I needed to. I had to snap myself out of this daze or I wouldn't hear what I had to do. Finally, I forced myself to listen, but it was too late. She had stopped talking. The instructions had already been given, and I was clueless. I tried looking to see if there was anything that would help me figure it out, but then out of nowhere, the platform started to spin. What the hell was going on? Why were we spinning? And there's music playing? It sounded like a children's nursery rhyme, which usually meant something especially horrible was going to happen. I had to get somebody to tell me the instructions, or I didn't have a chance. In a panic, I found the guy closest to me and grabbed him by the collar, saying,
"What's going on? Back off! Just tell me what's happening! Let go of me!"
"Look, I'm sorry. Please, I'm not trying to fight. I just need you to tell me what game we're playing."
Weren't you listening?
I zoned out. I don't have my meds, man.
You zoned out? Alright, moron. Listen, when the music stops, they're gonna call a number. And then we have 30 seconds to get into one of those rooms with the exact number of people. Got that?
Got it. You want to team up?
Sure, whatever. As long as we make it out of this thing alive.
Almost as soon as we agreed to team up, the platform stopped. The music cut and the lights started flashing. They called out a number, 5. That's when we started running towards the closet doors. But then, as soon as we got there, a fight broke out in front of it. There were already 6 people in there, and they were trying to kick someone out while other people were trying to get in. We ran off to the side as I tried to stay as close as possible to my only ally. Otherwise, I'd have to start from scratch. One person latched onto us in the chaos. Then we saw 2 people in the room by themselves.
We ran as fast as we could, charging into the room just before another group. The door was closed on them an instant later, and they had to go find somewhere else. There was still about 10 seconds left before the end of the round. I caught my breath as the sounds of gunshots rang out. The guards were busy culling the stragglers. No matter how many times it happened, I never got used to it. After the slaughter, we were stuck in the room while the bodies were removed. Once we were let out, we saw just how much blood had been spilled on the floor. But our only option was to get back on the platform. The game was still going. The 5 of us decided to stick together, thinking the next number would be bigger. The platform started spinning again, and the music played as we waited and waited. The platform stopped, and the number was called again, but this time it was 3. Before we knew it, the others left me and my friend behind. We rushed off, trying to find a third person, but everyone kept getting snatched up right in front of us. We were getting desperate. Then, suddenly, my friend made a mad dash away from me. I didn't know what was happening, but I figured he had found a person alone in a room, so I followed him. As I arrived at the door, he shoved me away and slammed the door in my face. "Hey! What the hell are you doing?" That's when I realized there were already 2 people in the room. "Let me in! Let me in! Let me in!" I was betrayed. I didn't even have time to look for another group. I looked around right as the time ran out. There were plenty of other people outside with me, but we just couldn't get it together in time, so we were all doomed. I knew what was next. The guards were coming for us. There was nowhere to run and no way to defend ourselves. Despite all that, I still wanted to live. There had to be a way. There had to be. "No, please, just let me go. I won't tell anyone. I swear. Please! Ah!"